they're not compliant with GDPR, you've already lost. The overwhelm is real.
There's a ton of software out there.
I don't want something that takes 3 weeks to learn. How do they help you to be successful?
It's obviously a major concern.
Commit to a very strict timeline. What does that implementation plan look like?
Creates a little bit of an issue for accounting firms.
It can feel like wading through treacle. Or you need to cut through the noise as quickly as possible, then walk away because it's not a secure system. So I like to get my hands dirty and get hands-on with products.
Welcome back to the MTD Masterclass series with a Landlord Studio. I'm Logan Ransley, and joining me as always is John Toon. In today's episode, we're going to dive into something that can feel a little bit overwhelming for firms, and that's choosing the right software. And there's obviously been a lot of pitfalls over the last 10 years with this MTD rollout. So we want to cover off this so that you can best prepare to choose the right software, how to evaluate tools, how to pilot them correctly. So let's discuss that and jump right into it. So John, there's a ton of software out there. There's actually multiple MTD softwares just coming onto the market. Like I've seen so many just pop up in the last few months, particularly. Obviously, this creates a little bit of an issue for accounting firms, perhaps new accounting firms as well. But love to sort of get your insight on how accountants can evaluate which tools are the right ones and the best ones for their clients. So yeah, share some thoughts on that.
I mean, for me, I'm a very practical kind of person when it comes to software evaluation. So I like to get my hands dirty and get hands-on with products. And so, my immediate thing is like, and as you say, Logan, there's a whole bunch of like new products coming out almost daily. It feels like at the moment as we kind of wind up to the first phase of this. For me, what I'm interested in is like, right, first of all, what kind of client am I going after? So clearly we're talking about landlords in this instance, right? So what I'm now interested in is like, okay, I've got a landlord client. I've got an idea in my head of like what the requirements are and what they need to do. So let's go looking for software that specifically addresses like the requirements of landlords. I would say the first port of call is to do a little bit of research, excuse me, do a little bit of research and just have a look at their website, have a look at some of the features and functionality that they sort of talk about. And hopefully, that website is expansive enough to be able to sort of see that. And then see if you can get yourself a free trial or get yourself hands-on with the product. Because for me, that's the easiest way for assessing software. I know that feels like it takes a bit of time. And obviously you can't sort of churn your way through like sort of 50 or 100 products like that. But the reality is like, if you kind of scope out a website, you'll get a good feel for a product. And I quite often say like, the website is a shop window for a product. And if you don't have a good website, then the likelihood is that they haven't got a good product. That's not always the case, but generally, for me, that's quite important. And then, like I say, get hands-on with the product and really get yourself signed up to a trial for a couple of weeks or a month or whatever you can get available to you, and try it with some client information. You'll have client information from previous years. You'll have statements. You'll have bank accounts, you'll have all sorts of various information. You might not be able to get everything up and running like a bank feed, for example, but you will be able to get a bit of a feel for how the product works. And like I say, for me, it's quite a personal thing. I'm someone that likes a product that's very easy to use from the get-go. I don't want to feel like that I need to go through a sales or a training process to use a product, because if that's required, then I feel like the product's too complex and too unwieldy already. Particularly if I'm bearing in mind that for the purposes of what we're going to be doing here is I'm going to probably have a mixed approach of using this tool both internally with my team, but also advising and guiding my clients to use this tool themselves. And so I don't want something that takes 3 weeks to learn. I want something that takes like 2 or 3 hours to learn, right, maximum. And I want it to feel intuitive and easy to use. So that's kind of where I get to. And then ultimately, what I'm looking for is like, just put yourself in the shoes of like what you're trying to achieve. Like clearly from an accountancy point of view, what we're trying to achieve is like, can I get the information out of the sources of data as quickly as possible? Can I categorize it quickly? Can I then get to a point where I'm comfortable that it's compliant and I can press that button and submit it? From a client's point of view, what I'm looking for is like, is it easy for me to either upload the information or connect to my pre-existing data? Is it easy for me to kind of onboard historic information if it's required? And if they're going to be doing the submissions, is it fairly seamless and fairly easy for them to understand? There's no jargon, there's no kind of accounting words that make it complex or confusing, those kind of things. And that's where I get to. if you can then get yourself down to say a short list of maybe 2 or 3 products, that's kind of the way to do it. And then really, generally in my mind, it's quite clear which one you would choose over the others. But if that's not the case, then get someone else to have a look at it, or even get a client maybe to try the product out to kind of get a bit of a feel for whether that works for them.
Yeah, and something that I just wanted to get your insight on as well, because there's a lot of news around security and people losing information and all this stolen records, all that sort of stuff. It feels like it's hitting the news all the time now. It's obviously a major concern for a lot of clients and customers, particularly when it comes to like cloud accounting tools. And we obviously get asked this regularly in our community, and I'm sure in many of the other accounting tools community. So I guess what are some of the tips that accountants can use to reassure clients about digital tools, and particularly when it comes to bank reconciliation, bank feeds, etc.
Yeah, so I mean, I think from the very start, I mean, the very simplest thing to do when you're reviewing a piece of software is to sort of check out what's their data policies like. Are they compliant with GDPR? Because if they're not compliant with GDPR, you've already lost. That's a really basic kind of one. There are some other things that you can look out for. So the ICAW, for example, offer a certification program, and they'll have done security checks and reviews of that piece of software if it's got its badge on there. So you can be comfortable that that's going to be secure. You can look for things like SOC 2 and other compliance standards around sort of cybersecurity and general security. Those should reassure you. At a bare minimum, from a user point of view, when you log into a piece of software, it's got to have multi-factor authentication, where you get a code on your phone or it sends you a text and asks you to input a code. That is just a base standard. If it doesn't have multi-factor authentication, then walk away because it's not a secure system. The alternative to that is to use something like single sign-on, but that's a bit more complex when you've got a product that clients may want to use and it's maybe not as accessible. But I would say multi-factor authentication is an absolute bare minimum, and it should be on by default. It shouldn't be optional. That's kind of where I would say. In terms of like other things, when it comes to like comfort around using bank feeds and using connections to other data sources. Well, the great thing about bank feeds is that is a regulated area of business in the UK. It's required by law, and the security standards are set in that law, and they're required to be managed and achieved by the supplier of the information, whether that's the bank directly or whether that's through a third party, and the recipient of that data. And so there are very strict standards around that. And so if you've got an open banking data feed in there, that's about as secure as you can get, and in some cases probably more secure than the way you interact with your bank in normal instances.
Just want to touch base on, I guess, how you would approach finding a new software. You mentioned, go to the website, see if they've got a good website, review their data policies, etc. Sign up for a free trial, for instance. I guess once you're relatively comfortable with the product and you think it could be a good choice, sort of moving into that next stage. I mean, what does a smart sort of pilot approach look like when you're actually rolling it out to clients? How does that sort of look before you sort of full scale it into rolling it out to all clients?
I mean, I guess the key thing is to do two different things. One is engage with the vendor, because you want to. I mean, the final test for me in terms of like getting a sort of product signed off is to engage with the vendor, engage with the sales process and or the client, the customer success team, and just see what that looks like in terms of like how do they help you to be successful? How do they help you to onboard the product, whether it's both internally or with clients or with clients, I guess. And what do they propose? Because that will help you to sort of offload some work as well in terms of like doing that process. If you don't get a good feel for that, or there's like lots of there's just lots of sales and not a lot of kind of like follow up, then that's probably also a bit of a red flag that you've probably not partnered up with a good product. I think once it comes to like more direct implementation, it's always easier to implement a product internally with your own team, I think, because it's a bit more controlled. And so, that would probably be my initial focus, is to sort of get a group of people. I guess it depends on your scale as well, but to get maybe a couple of people on board with the product, testing it out, maybe just seeing if there's any other red flags or any issues that you might want to identify. But then also working with the vendor in terms of like, what does that implementation plan look like? What kind of training do they offer? What kind of support do they offer? What do they anticipate that looks like, and the timescale for that? When it comes to doing the client stuff, the client stuff for me is always quite easy, because most accountants and bookkeepers know those clients where they can go to them and pick up the phone or drop them an email and say, hey, Logan, right, do you know what? We're just trying this thing out. We think it'd be really helpful for you and your business and your what you do. But would you be interested in just helping us to kind of like just test this out and stuff? And you probably want to get a handful of clients, maybe maximum of 5, definitely, and just get them on board in a really managed way. Again, the vendor hopefully will support you through that process and to kind of like help with that education and give you some confidence. And then just get clients using it, and the key thing is just make sure that they're doing it like that. Whenever it comes to implementation, that we're very bad as accountants and bookkeepers at making promises and saying, oh yeah, we'll definitely use the product tomorrow and we'll try it out, and then what happens is everyone's busy, nothing happens, and so that stalls. And clients are the same, right? Clients are busy doing their own thing, so we just need to make sure that you engage in that process. Again, a good vendor will help with that, because they'll hold you accountable and say, hey, you said you were going to try out the product and you haven't done it. What do we need to do to kind of fix that and make that happen? So commit to a very strict timeline, I would say. Commit to a series of like very, very clear objectives. Don't make it confusing and muddled. Have a process to work through, and then try and stick to that as best as you can.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's great advice, and leads me into sort of final question here, for all the accountants sort of listening right now who are feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all the tech choices out there. I mean, what's your key message here? What should they focus on first?
So the overwhelm is real. Yeah, and I fully appreciate it. It's really difficult, and it can feel like you're sort of wading through treacle or whatever sort of metaphor you want to put on it. I guess you. From my own personal point of view, the HMRC website is not a great place to go as a source of information. Yes, you can sort of find the compliant softwares and everything else, but it doesn't then particularly help you with that research. So for me, there are a few things that you can do. Number one, you can go and do your own research. You can go and listen to podcasts like the one that I do, and obviously we're talking about a particular product here. That should give you a bit of a handle of what we're seeing in the market and what's going on. There are also a whole bunch of like industry events that are happening. I guess we're kind of towards the tail end of that here in the UK now, in terms of like the big industry events. But things like Accountex, Digital Accountancy Show, Fab, alternative events, 2020. There's tons and tons of stuff going on. Zero roadshows as well, for example. That's a way of just sort of getting a bit of an eyeball on what's happening with the market and what's going on. That won't give you a full view of everything, because obviously not everyone goes to all of these events and stuff, but at least it gives you a starting point. It gives you a flavor for what's going on. And the final thing I would say is like, lean on your peers, right? Almost all accountants and bookkeepers I know another accountant or bookkeeper where they can sort of pick up the phone or drop them a message and say, hey, what are you guys doing about this? Or who have you heard about, or who are you speaking to and stuff, and like what's going on. Like that word of mouth is really powerful, and just use that. I think if you try to start with a list of, I don't know, 50 HMRC approved products and work your way through that, you'll still be doing it in April next year. So you need to kind of like cut through the noise as quickly as possible. The final thing I would say on that is like, be really clear about what your focus is. Like, what are you going to be wanting to do come April next year? Are you going to be wanting to offer a full service plan in terms of like doing all of the bookkeeping, all of the submissions? Are you going to be wanting to sort of like pretend that MTD doesn't happen and get your clients to deal with it all? Are you only going to deal with landlord clients, or are you going to deal with landlord clients and sole trader clients? Are you going to deal with mixed clients? And those kind of things. All of that defines your choices, defines what you're going to be looking for, and also defines how you're going to then follow that up in terms of communication out to clients and an education process that comes with it.
Love it. So for all those who are listening today, take that advice on board. That's episode 4 wrapped up. Choosing the right tech stack is a big decision, but remember, as John mentioned, start small with a pilot. Go try a free trial on these software websites. Most of them have them. And then dive into it before you even begin that pilot rollout or even chatting with the staff about it. In our final episode, we're going to be painting a full picture of what a best practice digital workflow looks like in 2026. How to measure success, and John's final actionable tips for preparing your firm. So if you are, again, looking for a landlord-specific software that's MTD compliant, easy to use, and designed with accountants in mind, do come visit us, landlordstudio.com. You can book a demo with myself or one of my team. And we can go through that product, through our product right from start to finish. So we offer that property by property tracking, automated bank feeds, and all that good stuff. So again, appreciate it, John, and definitely go check John Toon's podcast out and everything that he puts out. We'll see you for the final episode next.
Thanks, Logan. Get people up to speed with what the requirements are. So is everyone completely up to their eyeballs in penalty notices? I tend to avoid return on investment. The ones that we're responsible for, did we get them all done on time? Is the software that we've got working as expected? Are the clients doing what we wanted? The key things here are like start early. I'm looking for efficiency. It's going to take at least a year for us to kind of get a bit of a handle on what's going on, what's gone well, what's not gone well. I see a lot of accountants getting really hung up on